Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Preemie Chats. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm Fabiana Bacchini, Executive Director of the Canadian Premature Babies Foundation. CPBF is a charitable organization, and our mission is to empower families of premature babies through support and education. This Preemie Chats series is one of the many initiatives we have to bring information for NICU families and healthcare professionals. Here, every Friday, we talk with experts, researchers, and parents who share with us their knowledge and experience. Also on our website, canadianpreemies.org, parents will find all kinds of resources and support. And today's Preemie Chat is to celebrate Father's Day. We have three special guests. Two preemie dads who will discuss their role in the NICU and how community support and communication are vital for families caring for their babies in the hospital. We also have the point of view of a neonatologist who became a father of twins. And during this live session, we will launch our first video in partnership with Recreate. And it couldn't be a better topic than dads. This video brings 5 tips to support dads and the NICU. So talking about fathers, we know that the role of fathers in the NICU has never been well defined, leaving many of them pulled in many directions, trying to figure out what to do. How to dad in the NICU is a question that will have a different answer for almost every family. Some dads will need to work, some dads will need to be at the bedside, and others might be 1,000 kilometers away taking care of older siblings. How dads can be an important part of baby's care team, whether or not they are able to be present in the NICU regularly, is what we'll be discussing with Tom Wiebe. Let me bring him here. My computer is freezing today. So Tom is joining us live from Vancouver. He's the father of Trajan, a baby boy born at 26 weeks and 6 days. He's actually 11 now, and Trajan spent 118 days in the BC Women's NICU, where Tom works part-time as a patient and family engagement advisor since 2018. He also sits on the board of the Autism Support Network of British Columbia. Tom, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Well, thanks for having me.
So I'm going to bring all our guests, Tom, and then we're going to start our conversation. Our second guest is Dr. Eugene Ng, who is a neonatologist and chief of newborn and developmental pediatrics at Sunnybrook Health Sciences Centre in Toronto. He's an associate professor of pediatrics at the University of Toronto and associate scientist at the Sunnybrook Research Institute. Dr. Ng has years of experience in advocacy and leadership role at the local, provincial, and national levels. He's the past president of the Neonatal Perinatal Medicine section at the Canadian Paediatrics Society. Under his medical leadership, the Sunnybrook NICU has been involved in a quality improvement initiative for optimizing care of the micro-premature infants through the Vermont-Oxford Network since 2014. As a stronger supporter of family-integrated care, Dr. Ng has been active in supporting NICU families by providing regular education sessions on a variety of topics. He's one of our regulars here at the Preemie Chats. And Dr. Eugene Ng is a proud dad of twins, a boy and a girl, born at term, and who are 13 years old now. Dr. Ng, thank you so much for being here with us today. It's so great to having you sharing a little bit of fatherhood looks like to you.
Thank you, Fabiana, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And I'm going to bring our last guest, Jimmy Singh, who is the father of 2 premature baby boys, Jack and Jett. Where is your video, Jimmy? Okay, here it is. Jack was born in February 2020 at 26 weeks, right before the pandemic started. Jett was born March 22 at 35 weeks, when the pandemic rules had been slightly loosened. Jim and his wife, Janita, spent 6 months total from 2020 to 2022 in an ICU. In his presentation, Jim will talk about the importance of communication and community in the NICU in helping parents with their difficult journey. Jimmy, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Fabiana. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. So let's start with you, Tom, because I want to hear your story, how you end up in the NICU with your son 11 years ago.
Mhm. Well, we went to get a regular routine ultrasound the day after Thanksgiving, and everything checked out, and they sent us on our way, and we started. The hospital where we got the ultrasound was actually just up the street from where we live and where my wife works. So we were walking her to work, and somebody came chasing down the street after us and said, "Hey, wait a second, something's not right here." So, and 2 days later, my son was born at BC Women's. My wife had developed preeclampsia, so that's why he had to come early. This photo here is first time I got to do kangaroo care, which I will be careful to point out was the day after my wife first got to do kangaroo care in the NICU. And at this point, I don't think my head had stopped spinning quite yet. We were 118 days in the NICU. Fortunately, 118 for us, very uneventful days. He had a very good course in the NICU, was just there for a long time. And here we are a couple weeks ago, riding our bikes around Stanley Park. He's big and active and busy and all that kind of stuff, and looking forward to all of his various camps over the summer holidays. We've had a few little detours along the way. Trajan has autism and epilepsy, and remains nonverbal due to speech apraxia. However, that has not hindered him at all from having a very busy and active life. So we're actually going skateboarding again tonight. So yeah, that's my story. It's kind of led me into advocacy. I started working with the Autism Support Network here in BC, I guess about 7 years ago. And I've been on the board there for several years, and that led me into a position working as a patient and family engagement advisor in the NICU at BC Women's.
That's wonderful, Tom. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your journey with us. Jimmy, I will let you share a little bit of your story. You are the freshest dad in this live today, and I have to acknowledge that we know the first few years are very challenging with lack of sleep. I know you're working from home. So thank you so much for taking the time for being here with us today.
Of course, anytime, Fabiana. Yeah, it's still a whirlwind right now, with Jett being 3 months old. So everything's still a little bit of a blur. Looking at these pictures here, again, they look like twins. They look like the same baby, but it's actually quite funny. So Jack was our firstborn. He was born at 27 weeks in February 2020, 3 weeks before the pandemic hit. He had come, surprisingly, Janita had not felt any contractions, so she was being proactive, and she went to McMaster, and Jack was born the same night. No diaper bags, nothing, all the reading that we did. I was actually thinking, after the baby shower, I'll start figuring out this parent thing, right? Because there's not much fathers can do during pregnancy except support their wife. And so I was all of a sudden a father, and I was like, wow. And 3.5 months later, during the pandemic, restrictions were basically no one was allowed, no visitors were allowed in. One parent was allowed in only at a time. So it was me Mondays, my wife Tuesdays, and alternating for about 2 months. And then they allowed one parent per day, or two parents, but one each can't come together. And so, yeah, we spent 3.5 months there, moved from McMaster to St. Joseph's Hospital, and we're home in June. And then because we had a premature baby, Janita got to a high-risk OB the second time for her pregnancy. And we got further along. The doctors were great. And we actually got to about 34 weeks and thought, wow, we're going to make it, right? We're going to make it to full term. And then at the next ultrasound, they're like, the baby had the same issues as Jack, where there was a growth insufficiency. And they said, well, every 3 days we will do an ultrasound. And if things don't look that well, we'll have to deliver. and we had a planned C-section. And funny enough, 2 days before the planned C-section was just an ultrasound, and Jett had come earlier, 2 days earlier than the C-section, but he was a couple weeks early this time, not as early as Jack. And he was there for 7 weeks. He had some sugar issues, so he was a sugar baby, which is very common in the NICU. And there's a lot of, so what we learned, there could be a 3-day sugar baby, there could be a 2-week sugar baby, and there could be a little bit of a longer term sugar baby. Our baby ended up being a longer term sugar baby. So we ended up spending another 7 weeks in the NICU. This is when restrictions were finally opening up. Visitation started happening again. And I thought to myself, wow, we might be one of the only families that were in the NICU pre, during, and post pandemic. So I'm not sure how many people wanted to have a baby that soon after being in the NICU that long. So I guess we were one of those ones. And as you can see here, this is when Jett was born. And Jack was allowed in. We were allowed one visitor, and Jack had come in with us. It was a drastic change from having a child at home and going to the NICU versus when Jack was born. We only had Jack, so we had spent, we spent a waking day and waking night with him, and we had nothing else at home. And now we were balancing, we got Jack at home. What do we do with him? To the point where I was bringing him to McMaster, and we were just walking around the whole hospital about 20 different times and getting exercise while Janita would be in there, and we would just do switches. And there was a lot of, it was a lot better the second time around. I don't want to say better, it's a loose term here, but you could see with the visitations happening, other children being in there, with the nurses and the staff, there's a little bit of a uplifting mood, where the first time when we went through the pandemic, there's a lot of uncertainty, not much communication. We would go into our little pod and we would leave. There would be no lunch breaks. You would have to go to the car to eat. You would just go home, come back. Your wife wouldn't be there. So there was no parents, having lunch in the cafeteria or in the eating space. So it was very, very secluded and quiet that time. So the second time we went, I guess we'll say we were veterans of the NICU game, and we knew what was going on. So we were sitting there, and one of the things was I would share my story. I would just start talking to everybody. It was good to see everybody again when the pandemics were lifting. And I realized quickly, with Jack being a premature baby and even Jack being there, a lot of parents were really happy that we shared the story, and they've seen that, with all the uncertainty of having a baby in the NICU, no one knows what's really going on. To see a baby, he's okay. He has 2 arms, 2 legs, he's great. And a lot of people, they're saying, thank you for telling us that. And I quickly realized I need to be talking to everybody, and it's very uplifting. And the more and more we were staying there, we had actually started to meet other parents, and we were becoming friends with a lot of parents because we're all going through the same struggle. As much as, our family and friends that haven't went through the situation, they want to relate. It's hard to relate because they've never been through that situation. But we have this community that's in the NICU. At McMaster, there's about 80 babies there. And so you have 80 sets of parents that are with you, going along with the same journey as you.
Jimmy, you're frozen. Okay, I think we lost Jimmy for a bit. Okay, Jimmy, you're frozen. We can continue once we can see you again. So, Dr. Ng, let's talk about your experience becoming a father. Now you're a neonatologist. You're expecting twins. How was the anxiety during pregnancy, knowing that you could have a preterm delivery?
That's exactly how it was. So I've been a neonatologist for 22 years now. So obviously, when we were expecting, I was already on staff, and I work at Sunnybrook, which was the Women's College Hospital before we moved in 2010. And our business is the bulk of it is premature babies, and also multiples, because we have the multiple clinics run by Dr. Barrett, and and so on. So, I've experienced firsthand, and before that, probably sometimes a little bit too much knowledge is not necessarily a good thing. So when we're expecting twins, and I said to many people before, you've got that dilemma between being extremely excited because after quite a while we finally are going to be expecting parents, but at the same time, I have more anxiety than other people may have, just because I've seen many things happen in the NICU, and for Tom and Jimmy and others can kind of tell you that the NICU is a roller coaster, and NICU is a roller coaster ride, and sometimes you just don't know what you're going to expect. So obviously, I went through the anxiety, maybe even more than my wife has, just thinking of what could happen, so my twins were born at 37 weeks and 4 days, and again we delivered a little early just because twin B was not growing optimally for the last 2 weeks or so. So they were born by C-section and they were healthy. And so, I think we went through that bit and but the rest of it, and well, first of all, I really have to say that, being a doctor who looks after newborn babies and parents, to experience parenthood yourself would change your perspective completely. And I can tell you, for one, that I've completely changed it. And, before that, you can sort of relate to parents only in the third person. It's kind of like, well, and using a lot of medical knowledge to sort of just get through some of the discussions about what is it like. And truly, I don't know what it's like to be a parent because I've never been one. And now, you could relate that a little bit better because, you do interject from your own experience a little bit as parents to relate. And I feel privileged in a way because, I'm also a parent of multiples. And so, when I now speak with parents of multiples in the unit, then I feel a little bit more comfortable with saying that, well, I've been there. And, prematurity or not, that's one factor. But, now you're dealing with having two babies at the same time. The challenges that all multiple parents face is really, in terms of how do you transfer, and sleep, and how do you feed them at the same time? The sleep deprivation is definitely feeling your pain, Jimmy, because I remember weeks and weeks of little to no sleep because they just wake one each other up, and then they have to feed, and then by the time you put them back again, soon enough there'll be another cry, and at the same time I took a few weeks off, but obviously I have to go back to work, and so and I cannot sort of just go to the basement and say to my wife, do you deal with the baby, I'll sleep so that I can function the next day. It just doesn't happen because you have to work as a team. And going out, and again, I said to many people about the importance of family support, and if you have families who could help you, and especially with parents of multiples, I think this is really important because you do need the extra pair of hands. This is not the time to say that you can handle it when you can't, and it's okay to say that, well, this is overwhelming, and truly it was overwhelming. And I can imagine if you have premature babies, sometimes got 2, got 3 altogether, it takes an army, and so you got to have to make sure that you look after yourselves, each other, and to have people help you look after the babies. So that's sort of my lesson.
Wow. Yeah, I think my connections might be a little unstable today, but Dr. Ng, I have a question for you because you brought a very important point about asking for help, having that village around to help you, the new parents. As a father, I would like to hear from the three of you perspective, how hard or how easy it is to reach out to the community, to friends, families for help. Let's go with Jimmy. You're the most recent.
Sorry, I'm not. Yeah.
Through this cry now.
I think in general, I think with males and friends, males are just less communicative. So it's they relate, but we're just more quiet individuals. So it is harder to relate, especially when they haven't went through it, right? Because it's not a lot of people went through a NICU stay. And so when guys can't relate, they kind of just, stay quiet, where I feel like, and then you're kind of secluded, right? Where you don't have that circle. So I think it is hard to get, to share stories out there. And I think we're stereotyped to be very strong, quiet, right? To be that backbone. And sometimes you can't do that. Like Dr. Ng said, that sleep deprivation is real, right? And you want to be responsible and the teamwork is really a big thing where, you want to do your duty, right? But then it's hard to vent as well. Again, with your male friends, it's hard to just say, hey guys, I went through this and this and this. And your friends react, they're like, hey man, that sucks. And that's kind of like and then like, they'll be honest, they'll be like, I can't really relate to what you're saying, but that, I feel you. Where I feel like women will have more of a conversation about it. And that'd be my 2 cents on that topic. I think it's just a little bit harder to communicate there.
Okay. Tom, what is your take on it?
We were really fortunate in our stay, and there was a number of families with pretty similar circumstances that all lived locally. So we were, we kind of connected with each other through the NICU experience, and we're still all in touch. We don't see each other very often, but it's really nice having had that connection that when you see them, you don't have to talk about the NICU because they were there too. That said, Jimmy, your experience over the last couple of years, I know from working with families in the hospital, it's been a particularly challenging time because they don't have those same opportunities. We used to host coffees and teas every week for families, and those opportunities have been gone. So you've seen families where one or both partners are fairly gregarious, social people tend to do very well, but people that are a little more quiet tend to be a little isolated these days, and it's challenging to work around that. There's not been a lot of outlets for that. How have you found it at Sunnybrook, Dr. Ng?
Well, I mean, families do gather together, and I know that there were lots of connections, and that's one interesting thing, observation that we had over the years was how has the single family unit, like single family room unit, changed the interaction of that community between families. So our workaround solution was the family lounge, and we made it as homey as it possible with full kitchen, with sitting areas, with everything. And people do gather. I mean, nowadays it used to be that moms talked a lot in the breast pumping room, and now they shifted to pump in their own room. So then I think there are some real concern about the social isolation bit, especially when you stay here for a long time. And so, that's the power of people like yourselves who does family support in units where people will not just, get sort of that peer support, which is important. And we do have a few of these peer parents in our unit, but also to organize events like celebration for Father's Day, for example, or, other occasions, and sort of to get together. Used to have dad's night or the moms get together, those kinds of things. And so hopefully that will sort of draw that community back between families. And, I think you do understand each other's best when you're going through the same experience. And so I hear exactly what Jimmy says, if you just go to friends who don't have kids or just have one or have term kids, they really do not understand what you're going through. So it is, while important, if people offer you help, if you have close friends or families who really can lend a hand and say, hey, can I cook a meal for you, or can I look after your older child so you can spend more time in the unit, that kind of stuff. That's why I sort of mentioned that you should never really turn people away because you cannot underestimate how important those kind of supports are.
Absolutely.
I found actually pre-pandemic wise, when I saw all the dads nights and everything. So the first time I was there with Jack, and I kind of sloughed it off. I think we were just, we took being social as just common sense at that time, right? Okay, whatever. And then not having it, and then made me appreciate, oh wow, like it would be great to have a dad's night, we're there all day, and then just for an hour or two, all dads hang out, and I thought that was a great idea. But it was funny when I was first there, I thought, what is, just a dad's night? I don't know if I'm going to want to do this. And after 6 months of this and 2 years, I feel that, it's very much needed. It's a large thing. And that was the first time of being a dad. I was a dad for a day or two, and I saw the poster for it, and then I thought nothing of it. I couldn't relate to it. And now I was thinking, wow, those are one of the main things that we do and needed. I saw that Jonathan made a comment about it's good to see NICU graduates, and that's what we did with Jack. And I found you just felt that vibe, like you just saw parents sitting there, and they would be happy. And I think it's just on the parents to communicate. I think with men, we are very, very quiet. So I was trying to force the issue with a lot of parents, and I think it's that stereotypical thing when you see somebody and they don't have a smile on their face, you're kind of like, I should probably leave him alone. I should probably, he's probably angry. But then you force that conversation. It's remarkable how many times that conversation probably turns positive. And then, you start relating to each other, especially in the NICU. You'll relate to each other no matter what. And you start becoming more friendly. And it's just breaking those barriers is very, very important. And then those fathers events, those things break barriers for you, right? It's kind of hard when you're just walking to a hospital and be like, hey, how's it going? What are you here for? But on those events, it's a lot, people are there to be social. So it's an easy icebreaker. And those things are very important.
Wow. Thank you, Jimmy. I will thank you, Jonathan, for all your comments. Jonathan is also a seasoned dad. He's a dad of 2 preemie girls, and he does a lot of volunteer work in our community. He does a lot of work here at CPBF. And actually, I'm going to take this to launch our dad's video, whose voiceover was done by Jonathan. And this video is the first video of a series that we'll be launching in partnership with VCreate. And it's 5 tips to support the daddies in the NICU. And I think it goes really well with all the 3 of you were talking about. And then we can comment on the video right after. Let me just get organized here, play the video.
Having a baby in the NICU can be a life-changing experience for parents. We often talk about the impact on mothers, but dads are impacted and have an important
Yeah, I don't think you might.
role too. The team at VCreate spoke to NICU dads and the neonatal care team to
Yeah, it's not working, unfortunately. I will share the link on our comments right now, and then people can watch. It's a 5-minute video. Great tips for Father's Day. We also posting on our social media. I'm sorry about that. I don't know why it's not playing properly, but the video does talk about what are the things that fathers can do in the NICU, and one of the big things in the video is about help, asking for help, and what kind of help, and the support from friends, and how that support looks like. And I think this is a piece that I really want to talk to you about, because we always feel that dads do not like the word support. They prefer other sorts of words, but at the end of the day, it is a support from whether it's your friend or a family member or a doctor in a hospital. So how do you feel about that, about reaching out for support, whether it's just for a chat or watch a game together while you're in the ICU, or Dr. Ng, or when you're overwhelmed with your twins, because the challenges of having a child, it goes on forever because you have a different challenge along the way. So how are you perceive that support in your journey as a father? Let's start with you, Dr. Ng.
Sorry, I blanked out for a moment. Maybe I'll let Tom or Jimmy
I'll
comment
go.
on it.
I got the freshest experience, so it's on the top of my head. Support is one of the hardest things, I will say, for me. The second time around with Jett, I'd bring my laptop I knew what to expect, so I knew at the start there'd be a lot of just sitting around at the bedside. I brought my work there. We luckily had like a little bit of a room there, so I brought my laptop there. I'd bring Jack there at times, so I try to do all these three things just so I would take the burden off Janita, because all the moms are pumping, right? They're, no matter what, they're not getting a night of sleep. Doesn't matter if they're in the NICU, they're pumping all the way around and getting a lack of sleep already, and you want to do as much as possible on top of they childbeared for 9 months or 8 or 9 months, and you feel like dad's time is to shine. The baby's out, and we gotta, you just feel like you gotta do your work there. And so, yeah, it's very hard to ask for support where I would just, I would do things. I'm like, what am I doing? I am trying to like bring Jack, walk him around, drop him back home, then go back, try to do some work, and sit by the bedside at the same time. So I definitely am not very good at asking for support.
Okay,
I'll say that.
Yes, you go, Tom.
Yeah. I'd say that since my time in the NICU as a dad, things have changed a lot for the better regarding support for everyone, and dads included. 11 years ago doesn't seem like that long ago, but it was still very much, mental health was not a conversation that people were having in the open very much at that point yet. And now, especially in the last year, I know that dads in our NICU are exchanging the names of counselors. People are talking quite openly about these mental health issues, which is, I think, just fabulous, because it is so much easier to address these things, at the start when you're in the NICU, than after things have simmered under the surface for 5 or 6 years. So it's been a really positive development, I think, in the last especially the last year, I've noticed it.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to say that and maybe things have definitely changed. That there had been, for and maybe even sometimes for now, there's a lot of emphasis on mom. Because and we're not really downplaying it in any way. It's kind of just like that there is something special between a mother and her babies in a NICU for sure. And I think, but many times the dad is left to be sort of the secondary person who does some support and whatever it is. First of all, mom was the patient, and when you're no longer the patient and your baby's in the unit, then we should consider sort of the family unit together as a unit, and dad would go with both parents, not just one. So I'm actually kind of glad that people are putting emphasis on the support for that, because and I'm not really saying that dads are not felt as important, because I think people are now seeing that we are also equal partner in the journey of our babies, especially babies in units. And so while we're putting emphasis on what the maternal stuff, like doing kangaroo care, there's an awful lot of benefit for daddies doing kangaroo care, and seeing great pictures of you guys doing it, and there are plenty of examples of how that makes a difference. And we had a dad who, because he is more available when the baby is still in the unit, and he ended up doing more of the kangaroo care than mom does. And it's yes, physiologically, if you're thinking about the medical benefits of doing something like kangaroo care, there is definitely a hormonal component to it when mom is doing it, but that doesn't say that anybody else doing it would not have benefit. And so I think we should not overlook that. And I'm glad someone mentioned about the mental health piece, because I actually think that we do have emotions too, and we could also feel depressed. We can also feel down. We could also feel just as stressful, if we're all invested in the care and the outcome of our children. So so I think there's something has changed, and I think for the better.
Absolutely. And last year, actually, I did talk to a psychiatrist at Mount Sinai Hospital who runs the father's mental health program at Sinai. And he did say that fathers who experience an ICU are higher risk of having PTSD. And also fathers in general have postpartum depression, which was new to me, that I did not know that. So there is a lot of support available for fathers in a lot of different hospitals, but I think fathers need to continue to seek help or peer support when it's necessary. And I think being an ICU is always necessary. But Dr. Ng, I do have a question for you, because we've been advocating for parental presence in the ICU for the last 2.5 years, and we know the impact of the restrictions on families. Particularly fathers are being highly affected, because in the first few waves of the pandemic, was only one parent, and usually was the mother in the unit. So what have you seen over the last 2.5 years in regards to fathers not being in the ICU? What have you heard? Because I know your hospital has a very different situation. You have private rooms. You didn't have the same restrictions as many other hospitals did across the country, or hospitals who have open bay units, or level 2 hospitals where the space is very limited. So what have you seen, heard, or experienced?
Well, I mean, so I think it affects us all just the same. And, during the pandemic, when visitor, and I mean, we have advocated, and I have for sure gone up to the hospital administration and really advocated for families to be present in a unit. And, if we apply this rule, and that's pretty much across the board, at least in this country, about having one visitor at a time, and this applies to everywhere else in the hospital, or one support person in a hospital at a time, then it puts a hardship on our family, because first of all, we do not consider parents as visitors. They are an essential part of the team, and so their presence is important. And sometimes having one as opposed to the other, and you cannot change the partner, or you cannot change the person who visits in a given day. That just makes very little sense. And we have families coming from far away. So there's one case where a mom and dad drove from way out of town, 2-hour drive or so. And when they get here, only one of them can visit. And so the poor dad ended up sitting in a parking lot in the car, waiting for the mom to finish the hour-long visit before they have to drive all the way back to where they come from. So at the time, we felt that we need to convince the people who made these decisions about policies in the hospital that it is essential for both parents to be in a unit. And so I think with some fortune we were able to be listened to, and so we were one of the first ones who allowed both parents to be present in the unit at a time. Now it is definitely difficult for other support person. So if let's just say for a mom whose dad may have been in a foreign country, then her support person will have to be made as an exception for the second person to be there. And so, I think we had to sort of keep fighting and making sure that people understand that the neonatal unit is different, because we're treating the whole family together. But certainly I can tell you for sure that these kinds of restrictions have put quite a limit on people, on families in many different ways, and we're not exempt from it. Never mind about having to wear PPEs in the unit and not being able to eat or drink. There's many aspects of restriction due to the pandemic that had caused a lot of issues. So I'm kind of glad where we are now. We're on a little bit of a downhill, and so hopefully that will just continue. And I think the pandemic has definitely affected families in many different ways.
Absolutely. And It's very hard to hear the stories. And thank you so much for your advocacy, Dr. Ng, because we know how much you advocate for families throughout your career, and it's not only now on the pandemic. So we thank you for that. And I have to say, Jimmy, I was very, very happy to see a picture of you and Jack in the unit with Jett, because that really was something special, because we know siblings have not been allowed in many, many hospitals around the world, and very few in Canada are having a sibling in the unit. So that really made me happy to see that Jack was part of Jett's care, and it is as Dr. Ng said, it is a family unit. You are treating the family, not only the baby who is the patient. So yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I will say there, like when Jack had walked through, because he was a NICU graduate at the same hospital, the amount of nurses and doctors that lit up as well to see someone on there, that uplifted the staff spirit as well. Because I remember when Jack was first there, there were NICU graduates that came through the NICU, and I saw babies, and I remember seeing one or two babies like, oh yeah, he used to be here, and I was like, oh wow, that's great, that's awesome. And then over the last 6 months that we were there, or 4 months for Jett, we didn't see any other kids there. It was just the NICU babies. And then bringing him, he might have been one of the first to come back into the hospital where we are at, and he saw the nurses that took care of him, and they lit up like there's 4 or 5 of them just would come to the room like, oh, Jack's here. And it was just a smile on their face and uplifting mood. And, it felt really warming. It brought back how much community and families mean, and they can uplift.
Absolutely. So, what have you seen in your experience?
Well, we've been really, really fortunate at BC Women's, because we're in a facility that's only 5 years old. So we actually never restricted the ability for both parents to be present right straight through COVID. Because we have such a wonderful HVAC system, we've had no transmission within the hospital. And we've had about 4 or 5 months since we've allowed siblings back in, which has been such a huge thing. It just kind of brings the unit back to life again. You didn't really notice that they were gone until they were back, and running around and causing trouble, but in a generally a good way. And now that things have opened up a bit more, we have a new sibling support center at the hospital that they can go and be minded, hang out and play with a bunch of fun stuff with volunteers for a couple hours. We also have sibling support for siblings under 3, where a volunteer actually comes to the unit to hang with a sibling for up to 3 hours, so that mom can actually do kangaroo care without being distracted. And that's been it's been just about a month since we started that up again, but it's been really wonderful seeing some of these supports come back into place, and just absolutely distressing over the last few years to hear some of the stories that have happened in other centers that have not been able to have that liberal of a policy.
That's amazing. That's amazing that they do that. The sibling support, I felt that with Jack bringing him in,
Yeah.
and they still had restrictions at our hospital with the outdoor areas, weren't allowed to go in little play areas, but to have a volunteer for a sibling there that's absolutely amazing. And
it's huge. It's just huge. So
Wow. So I will thank you, all of you, for joining this live today for Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to the 3 of you. It's always a pleasure talking to the 3 of you. Dr. Ng, thank you so much. Your support to CPBF is really, really appreciated. Thank you. So always make yourself available to share your experience, your knowledge with us. We really appreciate. And Tom, you are amazing. And Jim, you're amazing. I'm so grateful that we're able to bring all of you together today to share your stories, your insights, your vulnerable selves. So, and really giving back to this community, because I think we are much stronger together when we share our stories, to support others, to shine a light in everybody else's journey. And we feel that we are not alone, because we're all going through the same struggles, celebrated the little milestones together, sometimes crying together, sometimes laughing together. And I think that's what this beautiful community is all about. So thank you, all of you. Happy Father's Day. And I will try to play the video one more time, and I hope it works this time. So let's see. Otherwise, you have to watch our social media channels for the poll. So that is going to be right after our live series. But I did share the link on the comments. Let's see.
Happy Father's Day, all.
Happy Father's Day.
Create spoke to NICU dads and the
Yeah, it's not happening. So I will leave for you to watch this beautiful video on our social media. And for all of you watching us live today on our YouTube channel or Facebook, thank you so much for joining us here today. The video of today's sessions and all the videos from our live series are available on our website. And I will share the link here, the CanadianPreemies.org. And I really want to thank AstraZeneca for their ongoing support of our education sessions and our new part, VCreate, for the video series that we're launching today and coming up many more throughout this year. And we are a charitable organization, and we believe that through support and education, we can empower families, ensuring they are ready to care for their babies. Please visit our website, consider making a donation. Together, we can create a brighter future for all our families. And I see you again next Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Stay well.